Got across to Nikhil Naz joining us for more. Nikhil, one step closer to winning the World Cup. India is at an all-time high, winning every match that it has faced right from the start of this World Cup in its home turf. Not too sure what this magic is. Is it the home ground that India is really bouncing off from?
Well, Nabila, it's a combination of a lot of things. But as you said, 9 wins out of 9 games. If I go back to about a month and a half ago, before the World Cup had started, yes, everyone had picked India as one of the favorites. Yes, everyone had picked India to reach the semi-finals. But I don't think even the staunchest Indian supporter had predicted that India would go undefeated to the semi-finals. Now, that's unprecedented. This kind of domination we haven't seen from the Indian teams of the past. You will talk about the two Indian teams that won the World Cup in 1983 as well as in 2011. Even they weren't this dominant at the group stage. In recent memories, or in fact, even in the history of ODI World Cup, there are only two teams that come even close to this sort of domination at the group stage. And that's the Australian team at the 2003 World Cup, and then the same Australian team at the 2007 World Cup. In fact, the 2007 Australian team went undefeated. So that's probably the closest example that one can look at while comparing this Indian team in the history of World Cup. So as I said, they went in as a strong team, but 9 out of 9, nobody would have expected that. I think the foundations were laid right at the start when India were faced against the most successful team in history of the tournament, against Australia in their opening game. They won that. After a game versus Afghanistan, which could have been a tricky opposition, as we've seen in the World Cup, they win that. Then the crunch game versus Pakistan, they win that. And from there on, there was no looking back. And the other thing that you really need to notice, we'll always look at, 9 wins out of 9, but take a look at all India's victories, and it's not even been close. They've all been one-sided victories, barring, to an extent, you could say, one versus New Zealand. Even there, India were head and shoulders ahead of the New Zealand team. But the only team that probably ran them close was New Zealand. Other than that, their 8 victories have been completely one-sided. So this sort of domination is unprecedented in World Cup history. And where they are right now, I don't think Netherlands had the chance today. We spoke during the mid-innings, Nabila, and you said that whether Netherlands has a chance, and that is exactly what we had discussed. There was no chance that this Netherlands team could have chased down that 410 that India had put. In fact, it's a massive win by 160 runs. Just tells you the difference between the two sides. 250 is all that they could muster. And remember, this is a Netherlands team that did not fold up pretty early. They tried to play as many overs as possible. It tells you that while there have been teams that have got a lot of runs, in fact, here at the Chinnaswamy Stadium earlier in the tournament, you had Australia get 360 plus, you had New Zealand get 400 plus, you had Pakistan almost, well on course to be reaching 400. Yet you haven't had this sort of performance where the gap has been that big, and the biggest difference has been the Indian bowling. As I mentioned, there have been batting lineups that are getting a lot of runs, but the kind of domination that we've seen from the Indian bowlers, no other bowling lineup in this tournament comes even close. And I think that's the differentiator. That is what makes this Indian team head and shoulders above every other team that's playing. And now you were talking about the semi-final, India up against New Zealand. Whether it was New Zealand, Australia, England, South Africa, Pakistan, any team that was to face this Indian team, they would start as the underdogs and India would start as the favorites. Such has been their dominance in this tournament.
Nikhil, for India, this is now or never, considering that it's been quite a while since a win in the World Cup. Now, this is it's a home ground, all the mood and the fervor, the prayers with the Indian team. We saw this match that started off with the powered performance from KL Rahul and Shreyas Iyer, and then came on all the other batsmen. Virat Kohli, though, there was much anticipation that he would deliver a ton, but fell short on that. So give us a sense of who were the ones who really lifted this game and took it off to a great height. 410 is really a run rate or a figure that no team, the best of them, could catch up to. A rarity at that. So a few players who really stole the show today.
Well, Rohit Sharma once again gave you that impetus, that start in the beginning, got a half century. But does that surprise you? Not quite. That's how good he's been. Virat Kohli gets another half century. Does that surprise you? Not quite, because he's already got 200s in this tournament. So therein lies which other players that really stood out. And I think the two batters, if you were to look at it, were going to be Shreyas Iyer, KL Rahul, both reaching their hundreds, deservedly so. And while they had shown some good forms leading into this game, a big score like 100 had eluded them. And I think that was that one box that India would have liked to have ticked, that their middle order getting plenty of runs and getting plenty of runs in aggressive fashion. KL Rahul getting his 102 at a strike rate of over 150. That tells you that this Indian batting lineup from top till number 7 are all sorted, are all going into the semi-final with a lot of runs under their belt and all in form, and not just in form in terms of runs, but in the manner in which they've been getting runs. So those are the two positives from the batting, which is Shreyas Iyer as well as KL Rahul, both of them getting runs and getting runs handsomely. That I think is something that we need to look at very closely. The other thing, the Indian bowlers, as I mentioned, Jasprit Bumrah doing well, Shami doing well, Siraj doing well, your spinners in Jadeja, Kuldeep doing well, doesn't surprise you because that's how good they've been in the tournament. What really stood out today is, for a change, India went beyond their 5 regular bowlers. Now, this has been a trend with the Indian team that they've been sticking to their 5 regular bowlers, and they haven't needed to do any experiment because the 5 bowlers have been doing their job. But what they did this time, because they have the cushion of a lot of runs, and I think this is a tactical thing that was done by the captain, is to allow some of those part-timers to roll their arm over. So you had Virat Kohli bowl a few overs. This is something that I pointed out in the mid-innings, that watch out for Virat Kohli, the bowler in the second innings. He did that, picks up a wicket, and we saw, how the entire stadium enjoyed that moment. The visuals of his wife, Anushka Sharma, absolutely loving it. She's seen so many good knocks from Virat Kohli, but the way she celebrated his wicket was just something else. Tells you what a rarity that is. So Virat Kohli, the bowler. Then Surya Kumar Yadav was given a chance to bowl. He rolled his arm over. Shubman Gill bowled a few overs. The most important bit, Rohit Sharma, the captain, bowled an over or two, and he picked up a wicket as well. So what the Indian team is doing, that they have ticked every possible box. They have gone in prepared for the semi-final in the best way possible. The only thing that may have been needed or may have been missing is, can you have a backup bowler? Can you have a 6th, 7th, 8th bowling option that sometimes the other teams do? And I think the Indian team wanted to issue a statement there. They wanted to tell you that, listen, if need be, if the conditions demand, if we end up on a spinning track in either Wankhede or Ahmedabad in the final, we've got plenty of options. Apart from Jadeja and Kuldeep, who have been very tough to handle, we'll have a few other spinners and the likes of, Virat Kohli, Shubman Gill, Surya Kumar Yadav, Rohit Sharma, the captain himself, all chipping in. So that's the other thing that was done by the Indian team. And I think these are the two positives. The rest of them did well, but that was expected. I think two standout things in batting of KL, Shreyas, and these part-timers bowling is the highlight for me in this match.
Wow, absolutely. Speaking of KL Rahul, or a few others, more importantly, the captain Rohit, and the man who's got the world to become his fans, Virat Kohli. Both of them, this is their maiden World Cup, so it's all the more interesting, and it will really add to their careers if India does win this World Cup.
Absolutely. I think Rohit Sharma, the skipper, he's not shied away from accepting that this is, do or die sort of a situation for him. This is probably that last frontier where the Indian team wants to win. Now, it's been a long wait. A decade ago was the last time that India won an ICC trophy. That was in 2013. They won the Champions Trophy. Since then, they have come close. They've reached the knockout stages, but they've faltered at those knockout stages. And I think, that is something that the Indian team really wants to rectify now. They tried it at the 2 T20 World Cups before this. They even attempted that at the WTC final. Rohit Sharma was the captain on those 2 occasions, and he was really let down. I think in terms of his own estimation, I think he was really let down that the Indian team, while reaching the knockouts, did not, reach the finish line. And since then, there has been a conscious effort in the Indian team. And he's been speaking about this, the captain as well as the coach and Rahul Dravid. They've been speaking about this in press conferences, that now they don't want to think about the end result. They want to get the process right. They have to play the right way to win a tournament. Everything will take care of itself. At the beginning, it did seem like lip service. It did seem like a very cliche thing to say. This seemed like a thing to say to take pressure off you. But now, if you closely observe India's performance over this edition of the World Cup, you do realize that there is a method there when he talks about it. So, what the Indian team has been doing, no matter the situation, no matter the opposition, they've figured out a template where your captain in Rohit Sharma starts aggressively, Virat Kohli then consolidates, then you have a Shreyas Iyer who plays fearless cricket, then you have a KL Rahul who then can play both roles, either of consolidation or an aggressive role. And from there on, they earlier had Hardik Pandya in their plans, but he got injured. Now they've covered it up with someone like Surya Kumar Yadav who can go berserk towards the end. And that's a role that has been defined. And irrespective of the situation, they've been told this is how you need to perform your role. Stick to your character, stick to what is your strength, play like that. And you've seen that bear fruits now in this particular World Cup. So they're not going away. They're not deviating from that plan, no matter the situation. And I think that is the difference between this Indian team, which is why it gives me a lot of hope, thinking that this is the Indian team that could actually go the distance. This is the Indian team that could actually hold the trophy in their hand. Because unlike previous teams where they seemed a bit caught up between attack as well as defense, what's the role of each player, and take game by game. I think they've gone away from that. They've fixed the template and they've stuck to it no matter what the situation. And when you just follow the process without really caring about what the result is going to be like, what the scoreboard is going to show, what people are going to talk, I think that's when results then start to fall in place. And this is what this Indian team is doing, which is what gives you hope that
Right.
while they've faltered at the knockout stages earlier, this may not be that.
Nikhil, we're having lots of live reactions coming in post the match and India's victory. Let's have a listen.
It was not just Netherlands played well, good game. At the same time, we could see many part-timers. We were less with the bowling option of Hardik Pandya, but today, looking at the way Kohli bowled, he picked up a wicket. So we do have other options apart from the 5 bowlers, and it's a good sign. Looking at the way semi-finals and finals are going to be, anybody can come in and pick a wicket or two. Imad, thank you.
हिंदी आज का मैच बहुत भारी था सर, बहुत इंडिया बहुत फॉर्म में है। इंडिया ही कप ले लेकर आएगी इंशाल्लाह। पाकिस्तान तो चले गई, कोई थोड़ा बेजार हुआ इसके लिए। अभी तो इंडिया तो फुल फॉर्म में है, इंडिया ही ले लेकर आएगी कप इंशाल्लाह। कप इंशाल्लाह ले लेकर आएंगे। विराट कोहली तो बहुत फॉर्म में है, विराट कोहली नहीं पूरे प्लेयर्स बहुत फॉर्म में है। ऐसे ही इंडिया खेल ले गई तो इंडिया बहुत आगे, बहुत अच्छा खेल ले जाएगी इंशाल्लाह।
All right. Yeah, well, you have cricket fans there in Bengaluru's Chinnaswamy Stadium. Nikhil Naz is still with us. Nikhil, we see all the emotions coming out of fans who've gone to watch that match live at the stadium. Chinnaswamy Stadium, we know it's one of the best stadiums in the country, massive, and the crowds are berserk. Generally, any match, anything to do with India or RCB, you have hordes of people, and that stadium is usually packed. Any given match, and this is the World Cup. At the end of it, there were tickets that were sold out. My family members were asking for a bunch of them, so we know that there was a queue to get their hands on the tickets, but sold out much in advance. So what a treat for them on day of Diwali.
Well, I'm not surprised, Nabila. Most other stadiums may not have had a sold-out crowd for 2 reasons. One, it was Diwali. Most people may not want to venture out, stay at home. The second being that, India had already qualified for the semi-final. So in that sense, there wasn't much then in terms of a context, in terms of, something that the Indian team needed to achieve, barring a few individual performances. Yet you saw a full house in Bangalore. And that, I think, tells you, as you mentioned earlier, the love that city has towards cricket. And secondly, it's their favorite son, Virat Kohli. He may be an adopted son, a Delhi boy who's now adopted by Bangalore, but plays all his IPL there. He himself has said that this is not his second home, this is his home. When he was playing, I mean, you expected a full house. All RCB games in the IPL are usually sold out. So no surprise that this game was sold out. And then add to the fact that the Indian team has been doing well. Who doesn't really like a champion team? Who doesn't like a team doing well and then going to cheer on to that team? So I guess this was also a chance for Bangaloreans to get a glimpse of this Indian team, because they are on their way to making history. They may not be playing the semi-finals or the finals in Bangalore, but if you've gone and watched this game, you could say this for years to come, that I saw that Indian team, that dominating Indian team, at the 2023 World Cup player game in Bangalore.
Finally, Nikhil, after much of this, the praises that we've showered on the Indian cricket team, a quick word and a realistic one. As we see objectively, do you believe that the Indian team's fielding was a bit of a dampener in this match?
If you compare it to other performances at this World Cup, I'd have to agree with it. Yes, may not be as good as what we have seen in this World Cup, but I guess that's also a reflection of the fact that India have been so good in fielding during this World Cup. They've been one of the best fielding sides. They have this, custom in the Indian dressing room after every game where the fielding coach comes and analyzes. They put those videos out on social media, and you can hear the various areas that they've been concentrating on. And they have this medal for the best fielder every game. And I've seen it across the players, whether it's the captain in Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli, KL Rahul, the wicketkeeper. Everyone is vying for that medal. Oftentimes you see that in a game where a player takes a catch and then gestures towards that medal, that hopefully I'll get this medal. So they're really, gunning for that medal that you get at the end of each game. So there's a bit of a healthy competition happening between players. And what that does is keeps them on their toes, keeps them performing at their best of their abilities. And that's one thing that we've seen. This was a blip, I would say. And could also have been aided by the fact that we were getting to know of reports that there was a bit of dew in Bangalore. Second half of the game, it tends to happen. India were fielding, and sometimes, you do see that it's really tough to either field the ball or catch the ball when the ball is slightly wet because of the dew that was there in Bangalore. So that could be one area. But I guess if India had to have a bad fielding day, it might as well have had it now than have it in those crunch games in the semis or finals. And I look at it that way. Otherwise, nothing to complain. The Bangalore boy, KL Rahul, I think, he was still a standout fielder. One of those catches that he took of Jadeja, absolutely outstanding. He went into this World Cup as a backup wicketkeeper, and he's now emerging as a full-time regular wicketkeeper with the kind of catches that he's been pulling off in this World Cup. So that, I think, has been a positive consistently in this tournament and was visible today as well.
Well, fantastic. So the group stage is done with, Nikhil. It's perhaps the biggest challenge that's coming up next, semi-finals against the Kiwis at Wankhede. They've never won against Kiwis in an ICC knockout game. So tell me about that.
Well, that's a stat that you wouldn't want to remind me or any other Indian cricket fan. That's true. And New Zealand, they've always been, a team that's stayed under the radar. They've always come to World Cups very well prepared. They have multiple all-rounders that really helps them in white ball formats. It takes me back to the last World Cup 2019 when India were drawn to play New Zealand. I think the entire country was celebrating with the hope that, okay, we've got the easier semi-final and then we'll make the final. And as it turned out, New Zealand, brushed aside India and reached the final. And I think that's the mistake that this Indian team or even Indian fans are not going to make now, knowing fully well what New Zealand can do. After that, you also had another final in the ICC tournaments where India and New Zealand met. That was the final of the WTC, where again New Zealand got the better of India. So I think India are going to be wary of them. One thing that India will take into this World Cup, which wasn't there in 2019, India and New Zealand had a game that was washed out, so they hadn't played each other. This time India have played New Zealand going into the semi-final, and India won that game. So I think that psychological advantage India will carry in the semi-final. Also, let's not forget, India is going to be playing at home. So home conditions are definitely going to be favoring the Indian team. And quite frankly, the form that this Indian team has shown is quite different to the Indian teams of the past that have come up short against New Zealand in knockout tournaments. All of that put together, I think this could be a time when that record changes that you just mentioned.